And to the title screen we go.
And we fade from title screen. And then we say,
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
You're gonna, if you talk with your body this far forward,
No one will hear you.
You might not, because it's a unidirectional microphone, right?
Right.
So, and I realize now the world will be listening.
Omnidirectional.
Yeah, all right.
I think so.
Well, yeah, well, you let me know, because it's great to be here live, and it's also great to be recorded for a podcast that people can listen to later on iTunes.
On iTunes.
Podcasts, yeah.
So
mind where the microphone is.
I
man.
gotta say, I've been live streaming since 1999.
You have.
Not USB.
That's not gonna work.
And podcasts were getting pretty popular back in 1999. I never got on the
they were.
podcast. I don't like talk radio, and I feel like a podcast is just the new talk radio.
Of course, yes.
But then,
well, even classic NPR is stored on iTunes.
NPR is funded by viewers like you.
Oh, TheOneRing.net are funded by viewers like you.
Yeah, but they also get half their funding from the federal government, which the One Ring does not.
That is true.
But then, we're live here from Meltdown Comics, the home of Nerdist, and there's the Nerdist podcast room right up there, and they've made a military isn't the right word. This huge, omnipresent machine.
Okay. Yes.
It's the Nerdist machine of YouTube and TV shows at midnight.
That's a suitable analogy. Yes. Yes.
And so there's something with podcasts, and we appreciate everybody that's been subscribing to our podcast on iTunes.
We are currently live on TheOneRing.net/live.
Correct.
That is correct. Yes.
Yes, we're streaming live on Ustream today. There goes a poster.
A poster. I heard that. That was a big poster.
Yeah.
It just went down.
I think it was
the ground,
first poster of Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim. That's an old school silkscreen. Arrow
nice.
Bondi in the chat room is waving.
Hello,
hi.
Hey, guys.
Hello, Wetterman. Hello.
Hello there. Oh, it's Max. Hello there, sir. How are you, my friends? He came to, the whole team from the Wetter family came to join us at Kamikaze.
Oh, that's nice.
That was our last convention event of the year, where we, TheOneRing.net, do many, many convention appearances throughout the calendar year, and that was our last one of 2014.
The Sheepish Lion says, just the mention of Ustream brings the house down. That's funny.
Hey, and Sheepish Lion, a good friend of mine. Hello. It's good to see Tim Dolph is here. All of our friends are here. Some of them local in California, some of them across the world.
Yeah, a lot. Some Scandinavian friends.
Emily's in England. Hello.
That's right.
Late night hour.
Staying up late with us.
Well, I've been getting emails from Royd Tolkien. I can't wait to tell you guys what's going on.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah, you guys are going to be very excited about this.
You've already seen Royd's cameo in the Hobbit trilogy.
And
if you got the Desolation of Smaug extended edition.
So cool. I almost immediately recognized him, and then within a few minutes, somebody tweeted me and said, "Hey, did you see that was Royd?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I think that was just him."
We knew about that.
That was the confirmation I was waiting for.
We knew about that before the first movie came out, when Royd came here on the show, and then he's like, after the cameras were off, he's like, "Hey guys, I don't know what movie I'm going to be in, but I'll be in it." So that was pretty exciting. So the way this show works, you can call or text us. We prefer text 530-64-FRODO. That's really our number, 530-64-FRODO. We're streaming live from Meltdown Comics.
Let's do that one more time.
530.
Area code 530.
64.
Numeral 6, numeral 4.
Frodo.
FRODO. Dial that or text us. It can be part of the show.
It's cooler than an old 800 number. Call now. Text now.
That's funny.
And speaking of call now, order now. Big news on Friday, which is Black Friday.
That's just coming up.
3 days from today. Wait, Wednesday, Thursday,
wow.
Friday. 3 days from today.
Yes.
We'll be live from Meltdown Comics here all day, and we're reopening the Torn store for the holidays.
Nice.
You can get all our favorite shirts.
Can I run over there and grab another one?
You can,
Look at that.
Grab a couple.
Wait a second, guys. Wait right here.
We've got all the favorites. May the dwarves be with you. Gandalf wants you for the Battle of Five Armies, a little military propaganda. What else we got? Obey Sauron.
Laketown Fire Department.
Laketown Fire Department is in the house. What else do we have? Misty Mountains. So we have all of our shirts coming back for 1 day only.
Are you going to do Sauron on the Iron Throne?
No, we can't do that one anymore. That one's officially out of print. That was a limited Comic-Con exclusive. So tune in on Friday right here at Meltdown Comics. We'll probably be live on YouTube with Meltdown Comics YouTube channel. So stay tuned to that. We'll be tweeting it out. And I think it's going to be fun. People have been asking about all of our torn shirts over the last several weeks. And, you know, the holidays are coming up. And it's the final Hobbit. And everybody wants cool Hobbit stuff. Because we're not really getting a lot of cool Hobbit stuff from Warner Brothers. There aren't a lot of t-shirts available.
How about this?
Look at that.
Great. That is the Laketown Fire Department. And this one too?
Yes.
Will we have this one back?
Absolutely.
Hey guys, the Sauron Obey. Sure.
We're getting text messages from you guys. Thanks for texting again. 530-64-FRODO. That's really our number.
Excellent.
You know what else? We just got the shipment in today.
Watch your language.
Shipment.
Oh, your shipment.
We just got the shipment in today. We are having a whole hour dedicated to unboxing brand new Sideshow collectible.
Oh, cool.
The boxes
Cool.
were huge. Boxes were huge. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have a lot of fun unboxing some of the great Sideshow collectibles, and we've got special discounts available. Sideshow has hooked it up. But this week...
That's very exciting. This coming Friday. Where online will our viewers be able to go and watch this online, chicanery?
It'll be
chicanery
on YouTube, on Meltdown Comics, the YouTube
on
channel.
Meltdown Comics
part
YouTube
of the
channel.
Machinima Network.
Oh, okay. Part of the Machinima Network.
Yeah. So, exciting. We'll be printing them immediately and shipping them out before
You know what it
Christmas.
sounds like when you say that? Part of the Machinima Network. It sounds like when you're on some other TV show and you're like, before we announce the winner of the Grand Pizza Prize, sponsored by Kohl's, it just sounds like you have to say that, like
We're
sponsored by blank.
We're getting used. We're practicing for Friday.
That lingo.
But
That's
the
very
text
funny.
messages are coming in hard and fast.
They are indeed. Hello, everybody on the show. Good to
Cliff,
see you.
I just got the Silmarillion because the Wizard discussion last week was amazing. That's fantastic.
Oh, that's excellent. No Tolkien fan could ever go without reading and absorbing the Silmarillion. Such an amazing story. And many stories within it that weave together bigger threads of all of Middle-earth and its creation. Really great.
Another text message. Did you guys see the new TV spot that aired during Sunday Night Football? Galadriel uses the light and Dol Guldur battle. We actually knew that because the Lego
toy shows her holding the file of Galadriel.
Yeah. So the light of Elendil is used by Galadriel.
And at Dol Guldur, the battle that was famously mentioned in an off-the-cuff remark by Philippa Boyens 4 years ago.
That's right.
In an international press room where she wasn't supposed to even be mentioning those story spoilers. She mentioned it and I overheard. And she was talking to other reporters at the time. It was really quite funny.
Yeah.
So, yes, the light of Elendil, which you continue to call it as if it were a proper noun.
Yeah.
The proper physical object is the file. What you're speaking of is the light of Elendil, which is inside
in the file.
The waters
in
of
the
her
waters.
mirror, and the waters of her mirror, which we see in the Mirror of Galadriel sequence.
I've heard
that's in the file. Okay, so that's how that works.
Rumors that she, I don't even want to talk about it. There's no point in getting into spoiler and speculation now.
That's all we do. That's what we professionally do.
This
is offer
goes
spoilers.
way deep. I've been keeping up on the spoilers, but I have yet to read the book. So I'm in this weird haze right now where I don't know what to believe. I just don't know what to believe anymore.
What we're going to be talking about tonight is what you should believe or what you should expect. Because we're going to compare The Hobbit, the way it was adapted in the past, and we'll compare the way The Hobbit is now being adapted.
The title of this episode is
Hobbit, then
through the years.
Hobbit then and now.
Then and now.
Yeah,
And
then and now.
So
As if we're going to go back again and then bring it back there. In the other way.
And
That's you know what I'm saying.
there's a lot to talk about, because not only has The Hobbit had more versions and more people address the Hobbit story.
Oh my gosh.
But Tolkien himself retconned the whole thing 20 years after it was published.
I love it the way you say that. He actually had to rewrite the Riddles in the Dark dialogue and some of the sequences in the Riddles in the Dark chapter to bring the second edition of The Hobbit into alignment with what The Lord of the Rings currently was. It is true. It's interesting.
It is interesting. I think people don't give enough credit to the professor himself, that I think he would appreciate some of the changes that were made during Lord of the Rings movies. I think he would have appreciated some of the animated film changes for The Hobbit, and I think when Peter Jackson says he was trying to make The Hobbit true to Tolkien and the themes true to the themes of Tolkien, I think Peter Jackson delivered on that. But we've talked about the changes when it comes to the themes of The Hobbit and how and what Tolkien was trying to do and say during when he wrote The Hobbit back in 1937, right?
Yes.
Society has changed. Side topic. There's a new Star Wars trailer coming out on Friday. There's a new Jurassic Park trailer out today, and they filmed.
This is exciting as all get out.
They filmed.
You're excited. You're the geek in the room who's excited about this.
Episode 7, Star Wars, in the forest, under the tree that is supposedly Tolkien's inspiration for the Shire.
Oh, how amazing! Really?
I forget what it's called. It's something Wood, not Inglewood.
Sarehole Mill.
No.
When he was a little boy, Tolkien and his younger brother played in the woods near Sarehole Mill.
Yeah, it's near there. I think. Let me check it out.
Hold on. But did we just go off the air? No, we did not. We're still quite on the air.
I think we're still on the air. We're still in the chat room.
Yeah, we're still quite live and quite living and quite happy.
So you've been doing a lot of research on all the versions of The Hobbit and through the years.
The funny thing is that there's a legacy. The Hobbit has been adapted and elaborated upon in many ways, as it says. You go back to 1966. And there was a 12-minute version of The Hobbit that was filmed as a brief animated bit. And you can find these things on Wikipedia. The most fascinating thing is to look and see how The Hobbit has been approached. Well, The Lord of the Rings has only been approached as an adaptation in one major big adaptation, the film series, outside of the musical, the stage musical adaptation of The Lord of the Rings,
right?
Which was a blip on the radar and then wasn't there anymore. And it's funny that The Hobbit has been, because of its shortness, because of the length of a children's story, The Hobbit has been approached and adapted many, many more times than The Lord of the Rings has. And I thought that would be an interesting subject today to talk about The Hobbit then and now.
Okay.
Okay. So look at this here. This is very interesting. Tolkien sold the rights to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Because he had debts.
Oh, in 1969. This happened in 1969. The year...
The height of flower power.
Yes.
When did Bilbo Baggins' song come out by Leonard Nimoy?
He says we are off the air. Oh, okay. Let's see if we're still as much on the air as we think we are. We're getting text messages from our friends who are here in the chat room. Okay? And we're going to double check and make sure that all our connections are connected properly.
Huh.
Did you guys just go off the air?
Still, you are. We're back on now.
Okay. Are we back?
Gremlins in the Ustream world. Maybe
I'm gonna ask our friend Iruana Undomiel if we're back yet. Okay. Now we're getting. This is the joy of doing it live. When we do it live, people tell us immediately, "Oh, you're back on the air."
See, it's not
Thank
just,
you.
It's
Thank
just
you.
not just the camera.
I was worried for a minute there,
and,
Max.
and the
Yeah, for a
microphone,
second there.
It's the
But here's the funny
internet
thing.
access.
Okay, you guys are great. Thank you for keeping up with us.
But you were saying 69. He sold the rights. When did Leonard Nimoy sing the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins?
Leonard Nimoy sang the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins?
Bilbo Baggins.
In the middle of the earth, in the land of the Shire, lives a brave little hobbit that we all admire. With his strong wooden pipe, stubby little toes. Something, and everybody knows him, Bilbo. Bilbo Baggins, bravest little hobbit of them all. You guys remember that? That was,
Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, sorry, Sheepish Lion. That was...
Spock.
Yeah, that was the real deal. That was
Spock.
That was Mr. Spock. Spock. That was Spock. Leonard Nimoy doing a little bit of a fluff bit for a television show that was called Malibu U. It was a summer replacement show that appeared in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, so what was it before? Did he sing that song before the...
Okay, I'd have to look it up.
Rights? You guys in the chat room.
Hold on, everyone is down there. Everyone's like texting us and sending a lot of messages to the hotline. Well, I'm going to take a moment, and I'm going to take just a moment, and I will look up and see when our boy Leonard Nimoy. There you go, 1967.
1967.
1967.
And he sold the
How
film,
about
and
that?
he sold the film rights to The Hobbit in 1969. So why did Leonard Nimoy sing a song about Bilbo Baggins in 67? Then he sold 69. That he basically Tolkien sold.
That was great.
At the top of the market. Basically,
when the fandom was, believe me, fandom was that big that Leonard Nimoy did a little pop song on an American kids television show, and then 3 years later, Professor Tolkien sells off the farm, and he sells the rights to his Lord of the Rings books and the Hobbit books to make a really sweet deal.
Puzzlewood.
He was really down to put his kids through college. He was not making enough money.
Grandkids.
He was an academic.
Kids. How old is it?
Does anybody in academia make enough money? Now, he was an academic. He had three kids.
He taught at
four.
He
four.
taught at.
3 boys and 1 daughter.
Yeah, but where did he teach? He was at like a big university. Don't they have? Don't teachers make a lot of money at university level?
Oxford is the name of that big university that you're thinking
Oxford.
about. Oxford University is what you're thinking about. He was not. No. The amount of money that he made from book sales was huge, 100 times more than his academic pay.
And that was always
really much more than his academic pay.
If you watch Shadowlands, they go into that relationship he has with C.S. Lewis, where C.S. Lewis, ended up publishing 7 books of Narnia, and they became huge hits in the U.S. And C.S. Lewis was just independently wealthy from then on.
Indeed, he was.
And he was. All of his compatriots at Oxford, even Lewis himself, was like, "Hey, dude, why don't you publish that Hobbit book, man? Why don't you publish the Lord of the Rings? Like, get some money in. You've got kids." And so by 67, he was just old and tired, and it was reaching fever pitch. In the United States, you saw songs being sung on the pop radio. Mr. Spock singing about Bilbo Baggins. You had the flower power and everybody kind of bringing in the whole Shire and green and we are of this earth.
Any of you guys who have seen our documentary,
Ringers, Lord of the Fans.
It was co-produced by TheOneRing.net. If you guys check out the film that I wrote, Ringers, you'll see a whole segment about how the hippie movement, the American counterculture, became the most visible audience, much to Tolkien's dismay.
Yeah.
All the hippies were the first to embrace Professor Tolkien and make it like what would become a Harry Potter level phenomenon. Indeed.
And it's not.
And here's the deal: he sold the rights to United Artists in 1969 for a lump sum payment of £10,000 and a 7.5% royalty after costs.
On anything.
Now, In 1976.
And that's all merch rights. That's everything to The Hobbit.
No, that's not.
Cartoons, movies, TV shows.
Well, there was a
merch.
royalty after costs payable to Allen and Unwin and the author. Now, in 1976, 3 years after Tolkien died, 3 years after our dear professor was gone, that was when United Artists sold their rights. Why would United Artists decide to sell something so valuable?
They were broke.
They were broke. Indeed, they were. I remember when this happened. And I mean, I was just
their valuable assets were the licenses.
I was only 7 years old, and I still remember reading the news about United Artists going bankrupt. Really, I was aware of this. Even when I was a small kid, I was interested in the movies and the movie business. So they sold their Tolkien rights to Saul Zaentz. And that's where it's been ever since then. Saul Zaentz has no rights to the Silmarillion, but he sure has full rights to The Hobbit and the Silmarillion.
Who is Saul Zaentz?
Saul Zaentz is one of the biggest power players and producers in the history of Hollywood.
That means nothing to me.
He's produced films like the Oscar-winning One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He produced.
That was after.
He produced Amadeus, Best Picture winner.
That was after. What made him so rich and powerful in '69?
He was a successful film producer.
What did he make? What did he make in the '60s?
I don't know. I'd have to go and look that up. I mean, my focus on today's conversation has not been about the resume of Saul Zaentz. It has been about the history of The Hobbit and these adaptations that have surprised all of us. But to really understand who is following the money trail, we can talk about that. Please, I mean, by all means, I would imagine your investigation to Saul Zaentz would uncover some of the biggest hit American films, English language American films, of the 70s and the 80s. Particularly my favorite film,
bought the rights
Amadeus.
In '76, right? No, Tolkien died in '76, and then they sold the rights. The rights were transferable. It's interesting because at the late '60s, the Hobbit was reaching fever pitch. Lord of the Rings was reaching fever pitch. Tolkien needed the money. His wife is sick. He moved to next. He had to move out of the city.
Well,
and move.
Saul Zaentz made all of his money in the earlier with Creedence Clearwater Revival because he was in the music business before he was in the film business. He made
and then he got into the pictures.
We're talking about John Fogerty and and Creedence Clearwater Revival CCR
out of Sacramento.
Saul Zaentz was deeply involved with Fantasy Records at the time. In 1955, he joined Fantasy Records. Ultimately, Fantasy Records was going to be the label which would release the Saul Zaentz-produced Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings. That movie soundtrack was on Fantasy Records.
Interesting.
Saul Zaentz's original record label from the 50s. So let's talk about the Hobbit adaptation.
Wow, so there's a Fogerty connection. There's a John Fogerty connection.
Yes, there is.
To our beloved Bilbo.
Yes. So Tolkien Enterprises.
Fascinating.
Tolkien Enterprises was a company that Saul Zaentz created to manage all the merchandising and toys that you're talking about, and all the stuff that's related to Lord of the Rings and Hobbit things. That was what Saul Zaentz decided to do.
And our friends in the chat room have confirmed that Saul Zaentz produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1972, which starred Jack Nicholson, directed by Michael Douglas, and starring Brad Dourif, who
indeed
years later, 30
our very
years,
own, Brad Dourif got his first Oscar nomination for that film.
Yeah, 30 years later, Brad Dourif.
Yes.
So, Saruman, Christopher Lee may have been the only Lord of the Rings actor that actually met Tolkien, but Brad Dourif had the second closest connection to the earliest
adaptation.
Because he worked for Saul Zaentz.
He worked for Saul Zaentz in earlier Saul Zaentz films.
Wow.
Yes, he did. But it was a Milos Forman. Who directed One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Was it Milos Forman?
Was it Milos?
Yeah.
Michael Douglas produced it.
But it was Milos Forman who directed it.
Really?
Saul Zaentz loved working with Milos Forman on Cuckoo's Nest. With Jack Nicholson and Nurse Ratched, played by the remarkable actress. Her name will come back to me.
I forget.
She was on Deep Space Nine, obviously, for many years.
Kate?
Florence.
No.
Where's my brain?
I don't know.
Someone in the chat room is going to say immediately who.
But
Yeah, Brad was in Alien Resurrection too. Okay, so here's the thing.
But let's also set the stage for these adaptations. And
Milos Forman ended up directing Amadeus, which is my favorite film. Amadeus is fantastic. And
it's pretty good.
It's one of the greatest films ever. Ever, by far. So, one of the greatest films ever. And
another piece of trivia, at the time when Tolkien needed the money, he had debts piling up from sending his 4 kids to college.
Yes.
In '69, he was getting on in age, and his wife was sick. So him and his wife, the doctors said, "Hey, you should move out to the hills."
Her name was Louise Fletcher.
Fletcher.
Thank you.
And
our chat room. Thank you very much.
And Tolkien, in the '60s, actually moved to the same street that John Lennon happened to live on.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And they were actually not.
Was it Northmore Road?
Not exactly neighbors.
I think it was Northmore.
I think Lennon
Road.
lived 2 or 3 doors down.
Yes.
And as with Clapton and Lennon, McCartney, Ringo Starr, like all those British rock stars of the time, I mean, they partied hard. Cocaine, LSD, all night parties. I mean, they lived hard.
We have first-hand accounts of from Lemmy Kilmister, the lead singer of Motorhead, and we've got first-hand account from him in our interviews in Ringers.
In Ringers, Lord of the Fans.
Yeah, you'll see Lemmy talking about we dropped some acid into the catering, and all those nasty, hard-boiled Fleet Street reporters, they went rolling on the floor in a crazy trip that they weren't expecting. That was the environment that Professor Tolkien found so deplorable, he called his fans at the time my deplorable cultus.
And so
that is exactly what the professor said.
It was kind of an unfortunate
so
situation.
Freaked out by that.
One of the main reasons Tolkien moved out to the boonies is because the doctor said your wife, she needs healthier air, she needs fresher air.
Yes.
And so he was doing it for his wife. And rock stars moved out to the boonies so they could have their privacy.
Yes.
And be as loud as they want. So Tolkien always got mad that there was never any parking on the street. The streets were narrow and lined with cars and guests from John Lennon's house. And so in the 60s, when it came to all these movies were being made, and some people were talking about, let's make a Hobbit cartoon or a Lord of the Rings cartoon.
Yes.
And they, he said, and someone approached him on behalf of the Beatles, saying the Beatles would like to make this. It wasn't that he didn't like the Beatles. He just didn't like his ugly neighbor. He didn't like John Lennon as a neighbor. And he just didn't, he refused to give the Beatles the cartoon rights to Middle-earth on the basis of being an ugly neighbor, a loud, noisy neighbor. He's like, I just don't like that. I don't like what all those people stand for. I don't like their drug use. I don't like,
Yeah, that's funny.
And it's funny how they,
that's funny.
Tolkien himself was like, the history has spun that story into like, he just didn't like the drugs and everything like that. And why did Tolkien write about smoking weed?
Tolkien's writing about smoking pipe weed was only about smoking tobacco. However,
yeah, right.
Professor Tolkien,
your love of the halflings pipe.
Professor Tolkien was a philologist who knew every word and knew what every word meant and its source. And tobacco was an American word and it was an American crop. And he thought that it would be very inappropriate for his story, which was set in England, or a prehistory of an imagined prehistory of England. He removed words and things that did not seem to be appropriately Eurocentric or British Anglo-centric. The word tobacco, although it appears on the very final page of The Hobbit, in the last sentence of The Hobbit, where you see, and handed him the tobacco jar, that was the last time that Professor Tolkien used the word tobacco in reference to pipeweed. In all uses for the Lord of the Rings, he changed tobacco to be a different type of pipeweed, but still essentially tobacco, because it was too much of an American word. So come on. It's about philology and the structure and history of every word, and every word has its place and its sound and its presence And that's why Tolkien's writing is so much more rich and evolved, is because of the history of the words as a real history that Tolkien deliberately wanted. So forgive me for that little bit of a digression.
I get it.
But
yeah, that's why
since
you're
you
the
asked
smart.
since you asked the question,
That's why you're the smart one.
that's why he's the Siskel, I'm the Ebert.
Right.
Hey guys, thank you.
I-
So not quite. No, just a joke. But the thing with the Hobbit adaptations, the biggest one that caught everyone's attention in the 60s was the radio adaptation that the BBC did to wild
in
success.
the late '60s.
Yes. Also, concurrently, a couple of years before the BBC made their watershed moment in radio history, doing the great adaptation of The Hobbit, Sweden had its own national radio company, and I met the lady when I was visiting Sweden. I met the lady who was the original radio producer. She's the mother of our friend Amelia.
Okay.
You know our friend Amelia?
Yeah.
Her mom was the first woman in Sweden to do a big pop culture adaptation of Tolkien, and it was the radio broadcast of The Hobbit. So there have been adaptations before, the Rankin and Bass animated one in the 70s, but it was all about the Beeb. It was all about the BBC.
Okay.
That's what they used to say back then. Like, when you're talking about the Beeb, I
Beeb.
don't necessarily mean Justin Bieber. That's an old slang that British folks use to describe the BBC. And that radio broadcast of The Hobbit was hugely successful, still great.
So what came
still
first,
great.
the radio broadcast of The Hobbit or
What came
Leonard Nimoy singing Bilbo Baggins?
Oh, well, let's see. What year did, let's see, the BBC did their 4 hours of broadcast from September to November in 1968. So that would mean that
68.
Leonard Nimoy's song was out just a year before. How about that? And
Like, the Fever Pit. Let's go through the timeline real quick. We've got he published The Hobbit in '37. He published Lord of the Rings in
17 years later, or maybe
52.
15 years later. No, The Lord of the Rings was published in 1954.
54.
I believe.
He retconned The Hobbit in 55, right?
The Hobbit got its second edition.
No, 51. He did it right before, I think.
Let's see.
The Hobbit second edition was basically like a George Lucas special edition.
He loves to make that analogy. He just does. But
He
come on,
changed
seriously,
things.
guys.
He changed things. He added scenes. He changed the way the scenes progressed. He changed characters' motivations.
Only one chapter.
Han shot first.
He changed.
Bilbo shot first.
Bilbo did not shoot first. Bilbo
Bilbo
accidentally found the ring instead of the first edition of The Hobbit, was when Gollum, who's much less of a threat, willingly gives the ring to Bilbo and sends Bilbo on his merry way for the rest of his adventure.
Yes.
In the second edition, Gollum became a serious threat and became a whole different nightmare to be added to the Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien had decided that at that point he needed a rewrite on that chapter, most of all.
We
the second
all
edition.
live in a yellow Silmarillion.
If we do that, we'll be taken off of our YouTube archive. Don't have the music people come and take our archive down off of YouTube.
Right.
One of our chatters is sending us a hotline question, and she says, "Is United Artists the same company that produced Rocky?" Yes. United Artists is always the same United Artists that released all of those major films.
It's the same United Artists that did Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, most recently. United Artists was started by Charlie Chaplin and swashbuckler
Errol Flynn.
The other guy.
The other guy?
Pickfair. Who's Pickfair?
Okay.
Mary Pickford and
Mary
Douglas
Pickford.
Fairbanks.
Douglas Fairbanks.
Swashbuckler Douglas
Yes.
Fairbanks. So
how can we forget?
Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and Charlie Chaplin started United Artists. When they couldn't get their movies made, they're like, you know what? Let's just start our own, and we'll make our own movies. And that's why. And right now, the Charlie Chaplin Studios, right here on La Brea, with a Kermit the Frog in a Charlie Chaplin hat, that is the old United Artists Studio. And Disney owns that now.
That's true, they
and
do.
That's where Sesame Street is filmed. And all the Muppet movies. Not Sesame Street, all the Muppet movies, sorry.
The Muppet movies. Oh, right down the block.
Right
what
down
used
the
to be
block.
A&M Records.
So through the years,
that used to be the home headquarters of, Herb Alpert's major record label, A&M.
and different and through the years, different the stars would get old in age and they couldn't manage it anymore, so they'd sell to investors, and investors would sell it to another star, and then the stars would sell it. So 80 years later, we come right now. Tom Cruise and a bunch of other stars own United Artists, so it's kind of it's a cool thing. So United Artists were the ones in the 70s that acquired the rights, right?
In 1969, they acquired the rights.
In 69.
For £10,000 British sterling, down payment, and a 7.5 back-end deal.
Was there...
That was to be split between Tolkien, the author, and the publishers, Allen and
There
Unwin.
must have been a
after
competitive
costs.
bidding process on that.
I wonder. It really...
Like, that was the height of Tolkien fandom.
It brings me to this next question, which was a very adroit question from one of our friends on the hotline. Wait, if we compared how much money J.K. Rowling has today to Professor Tolkien in today's height, where the Lord of the Rings stories are still really popular, believe me, they were popular 50 years ago.
Yes.
They're still really popular now. Still very much so. The question, who do you think would have more money? Rowling? J.K. Rowling with her Harry Potter megaverse. Oh, believe me, I just heard the news today. Rowling has finished writing the script to Magical Beasts and Where to Find Them. That's going to be the next
trilogy.
The next big franchise film from Warner Brothers Pictures.
The first of the trilogy.
They know that there's no more Hobbit films, there's no more Lord of the Rings films, and there's nothing else coming from Peter Jackson's end of the Middle-earth cinematic universe.
That we know of.
That we know of so far, unless they start to do some other stuff out of the appendix. So it's still going to be big, where's the next big buck coming from? Back to Joanne K. Rowling and the Harry Potter world.
A text message. If Peter Jackson did get the rights to Silmarillion and do the movies, how do you think he would begin them? We actually had a discussion about that. If you go to our YouTube channel, we talked about how the Silmarillion could be broken down into a series of 7 films, up to 7 films.
Indeed.
And we should pursue that a little more.
Believe me, I have a very close friend of mine who wrote on my Facebook timeline.
Yes.
2 weeks later, after we did that show.
Yeah.
He said, after 5 years, I finished writing major script treatment for all of the Silmarillion and all the stories within, and he's even got casting. He's already got
great. Let's
it's
talk
such a great
about
idea. But before we go on, to answer that question, who had more money? If Tolkien were alive now,
I'll tell you the
and
answer.
Was earning money in terms of how Harry Potter is earning money.
Harry Potter versus Lord of the Rings.
Who would make more money? If
Rowling versus Tolkien. I'll tell you.
Who would make the most money?
The answer is C.S. Lewis.
I would say that the answer would.
C.S. Lewis was always more wealthy than Tolkien, and C.S. Lewis was a bachelor for his whole life,
and had no mouths to feed.
And no mouths to feed,
except for his swinging, rich American wife.
And even then, that was a Twilight. That was fairly in his twilight. If you watch the movie Shadowlands, directed by Richard Attenborough, which he considered his best film. Richard Attenborough, we were just talking about Jurassic Park.
Yes.
He considered his best film was Shadowlands. It's about Tolkien and C.S. Lewis's relationship, and more importantly, C.S. Lewis's late life relationship. So this dude was a swinging bachelor that lived with his brother his whole life. And two brothers with an endless stream of money from the most successful books. He didn't need to sell the movie rights. That's why we never saw Narnia movies. He's like, I don't need to sell anything. I got money. Did he even have any kids?
I would give a different answer. That's a very interesting digression. That's very cute and funny. Yes, there are many reasons why Lewis had more money than Tolkien, and perhaps it fueled some resentment between the two friends.
And he had...
Not the least of which was the fact that Lewis became a Protestant while Tolkien was a Catholic, and that really messed up their friendship too. But look at it this way. The answer was about Rowling versus J.R.R. Tolkien. I think that Joanne Rowling might have gotten the upper hand with a financial win.
Only through the movies.
Only because she wrote more material than Tolkien did. 7 books versus basically 4. If you take The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, then Tolkien would have had the height of his popularity with 4.
I don't know.
And she had more books and therefore more movies. And that's just a simple equation. I don't know how to expound
if you count
on that.
Children of Hurin and the other stuff,
Now that's the next thing. If Professor Tolkien were alive as a modern 21st century person, instead of having left us when he did in the
Two
early
kids.
70s.
C.S. Lewis raised her two sons.
He raised two sons, Doug and David
but
Gresham.
it was
That's
always,
right,
it was always like a friendly Jap. What was the group? The Groundlings? No.
The Inklings.
The Inklings.
Silly boy.
No, there's nothing
The
funny about
Inklings.
those guys. The Inklings.
Oh, for heaven's
but
sake.
they used to prod and poke each other like, hey, Tolkien, hey, when you gonna publish that book? Why don't you make some real money, bro? Why don't you make some real money?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Hey,
It
I got
wasn't
this
quite
one.
like that.
I got this bill. I got this bill. This is C.S. Lewis saying, I got this one. Don't worry about it. You know, there's always this alpha male thing that just happens with guys.
I guess so. Well,
Even smart guys.
Well, Professor Tolkien had the last laugh when it came to C.S. Lewis, although he wouldn't live to realize it. He would not live long enough to realize how his phenomenon, the legends and stories of Middle-earth, became a bigger cultural phenomenon than Narnia did, if I dare say so myself. But it's interesting. The Hobbit, having been, adapted so many times, an animated short film that was 12 minutes, a stage play by Patricia Gray that appeared in the late 70s, early 80s.
In London?
No, in America.
Okay.
And it wasn't that good, really. She replaced Thranduil with an elven queen, so the people who would see her Hobbit play got an early taste of a fake Galadriel who wasn't even in Mirkwood. It was supposed to be the
Why don't they
elven
just
king.
do a Peter Pan thing and a girl playing a boy?
The whole Mary Martin thing?
Yeah.
Or whoever. Is it usually Mary Martin who plays...
Mary Martin
ultimate-
started a thing, but even
Yes.
the new Peter Pan live thing on NBC is going to have a girl playing Peter Pan.
I don't get that. Anyways,
And Christopher Walken.
it's as if you couldn't find the right type of casting. The casting directors should know they can find the right type of Pan
So
to play Peter.
Aravani in the chat room mentions focus on the family radio theater. Radio theater?
Where's that?
Focus on the family radio theater.
Okay.
Idril. What is Idril talking about? BBC Narnia.
Radio theater. Well, I don't know about that. I do know about the BBC's. The BBC, and Erwana Undomio is in our chat room, correct. She's identifying that the BBC films of Narnia were much better than the newer ones. BBC did it word for word. There were adaptations that the BBC did for television.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, with a very familiar Doctor Who.
Like a stage reading?
Tom Baker from Doctor Who is in like these Narnia things. No, they weren't staged. They were full television productions.
Really?
They were full television productions, and they looked just like they were shot on HFR because they were shot in that bright, shiny 80s television video.
Okay.
So the BBC has adapted Narnia as
So
many times as anybody. More than anybody else on Earth, I think the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation,
that's why Peter Jackson
has adopted Narnia over and over again.
That's why Peter Jackson shot in HFR. He was referencing the earliest known television versions of Middle Earth.
Indeed. Maybe. I don't know. But
Everyone says it looks like a BBC soap opera.
Media
The HFR.
Media changes over time, and this we all very well know. And the radio adaptation of The Hobbit, as successful as it was, would soon be followed by what I consider the most successful and charming adaptation of The Hobbit that came from our friends at the Rankin and Bass Animation Studios. You guys remember Rankin and Bass, don't you? Okay, I'm going to show you some color pictures from my book, which is The Enchanted World of Rankin Bass. This is a portfolio book of the animation studio that made Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and
Wait, how did he get involved?
World Without a Santa Claus.
Wait. Word.
Remember these guys?
I feel like
If
we
you guys
just...
remember Rankin and Bass, then you'll definitely remember Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I feel like
Everybody remember the
we
classic?
jumped something. Like Tolkien, the Tolkien popularity was huge. Middle Earth popularity was huge in 67 and 68. He sold the movie rights in 69 to United Artists. United Artists had a string of bad luck, and in 76 they sold the rights to Saul Zaentz.
And Saul Zaentz,
who was flushed from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, starring
Yes.
Brad Dourif. So how do we get from Saul Zaentz to Rankin and Bass, who created some of our most cherished stop motion. Why wasn't there a stop motion version? Like, how was Rankin and Bass known for cartoons? Like, I just know that
Rankin and Bass had been the biggest names in American television animation. They were as big as Hanna-Barbera were at the time because of the ongoing success of their animated holiday specials, which were huge. And, you know, like...
animated holiday specials, it's once a year. How can you say that they're more popular than Hanna-Barbera?
Because they had been doing decades of animated films that were released theatrically, and they had been doing children's animated shows and animated films that were released theatrically before they were doing the holiday specials. That was at the height of their power. So it's a very simple line that you... do you remember the mouse on the Mayflower? Do you remember that?
No.
From 1968?
No.
No, you're kidding.
Was that
really?
on after Mighty Mouse? Like,
The guys from Rankin and Bass did puppets for the Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy
that's
show.
what I'm talking about.
That's
puppets.
how it all came
They're
back to the
doing
very
all this
beginning.
puppet and stop motion. Why did they make the cartoon? Why didn't they make the Hobbit a cartoon instead of a stop motion? I think the Hobbit would have been very charming in stop motion.
The reason is very, very clear. The animation team at Rankin and Bass had taken a couple of trips to Japan. And while Arthur Rankin, who was in Japan, when he was on a tour, he met a lot of artists that he loved. And all of a sudden, he became an armchair otaku. Arthur Rankin, in the late 60s, early 70s, suddenly became the first Japanese anime...
Arthur Rankin Jr.
Arthur Rankin Jr. He brought back the influence of Japanese animation, and he was so enamored
That's
with
why
it.
his eyes
he
were
wanted
so big.
He wanted to produce something with those guys because he toured Japan and made friends with the artists, and he thought this is the way to go, especially for the stuff that they wanted to do.
When was Astro Boy?
I don't know. When Astro
Speed Racer.
You have Wikipedia on your phone right there.
You guys look it up. Like
So,
Astro Boy and Speed Racer were like the big.
This is the thing. The movie rights were available, and United Artists said, yeah, sure, you guys want to take a crack at it? We'd be glad to give it to you. Because Rankin and Bass had proved the success of their animated specials and their animated movies.
But in stop motion.
No, they had done 2D regular animated films. I just said this a second ago. He was on his phone so much he wasn't listening. It's like talking to a bloody millennial here. You are not a millennial, so stop acting like one. Yeah, squirrel. Yeah, okay.
Bunnies.
Look, Rankin and Bass had lots of success with feature films, 2D animation, and stop motion.
Wait. What year did they go into production?
On The Hobbit? Well, The Hobbit premiered on November 27th, 1977.
And it usually takes 2 years.
It took them about 3 years, I think, or more.
So they would have been in production in 74.
It was the first film dramatization of any work, anything, by Professor Tolkien, and that's why it was such a groundbreaking moment.
So
because
if they
Professor Tolkien had been adapted for other media, particularly radio, but he had never been adapted for a feature-length film.
Who was paying the bills, Saul Zaentz or United Artists?
Rankin and Bass had gotten the production money from the NBC television network. NBC network paid for it.
But the
aired it.
NBC didn't have the rights. Where did the NBC get the rights?
No, NBC didn't need the rights. NBC invested in one of their tried and true production companies because they had been airing the wildly successful Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and other things.
Last we left
Wait. This shouldn't be confusing. The network had the money. The network put the money into the production company because the production company said, look, we've got the rights from United Artists. We've got the rights. We're going to do it. We've got the new artists on tap.
This is before Saul Zaentz came into the picture. United Artists.
In 1977, it was after. I believe it was after.
So this is 5 years after United Artists had gotten the rights to The Hobbit. United Artists puts it into production and gets funding from NBC. So they're not making a theatrical version. They're making a tried and true television special.
Yes.
an NBC television special.
That's what it was.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming
Adaptations.
for a very special family program.
So it says here, you know, I'm looking at this little Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
Okay. And it says here that...
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us
on
this
way.
very interesting conversation. Adaptations. Okay. In 1969, Tolkien sold the film and merchandising rights to The Hobbit to United Artists in 69. So then in 1977, years and years and years later, after Tolkien was gone, the first film attempt adapting Professor Tolkien was these guys, The Hobbit.
Wait, but Tolkien died in 76. So he almost saw The Hobbit. And I'm sure Tolkien saw...
No, the author died in 73.
Oh, really?
Sorry, the author died in 73.
They didn't even go into production
I hate to say
until
that.
after he died?
I'm going to get up from the microphone. I'm going to show you guys this. Check this out.
Do it.
Often criticized for its unusual character design, the Rankin and Bass animated version of The Hobbit
Scary.
was rather successful, and it went down in history as the most awarded thing with TV awards and awards from other industry folks. The Hobbit animated film won the Peabody Award, which is a big, big, big television award in that industry, and Rankin and Bass were so proud of it. Check this out. Here's our Gandalf and Bilbo.
That's rad. Isn't that special? We're so high tech, we hold iPads up to the screen. And they're not even iPads, they're generic Samsungs.
You guys see that okay? It looks like it's not... maybe I should turn the brightness down.
Maybe.
There you go.
I think everybody watched the animated... NBC showed the animated Hobbit like every Christmas for like 15 years. They really got their money's worth.
Yes, they did. That's exactly right. Yes, they did.
Because they just paid for the production. United Artists was insolvent, and they were shopping around the rights. They were like, if anybody wants to make this movie, The Hobbit, and NBC stepped up and said, let's make it, but we can't afford to make it a movie. Let's just make it a television special.
They had the most character designs in this effort. It was nothing like anything Rankin and Bass had ever done before. It says here that Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass, the producers, rejected half a dozen scripts before settling on one that satisfied all the experts. The production features 13 songs and the efforts of nearly 200 artists, many of them Japanese artists. It was produced with over 110,000 hand-drawn animation cells.
This is the version. This is the film that had Glenn Yarborough doing the music, right?
That's true. Yep. And they won the Peabody Award. It says that the original program of The Hobbit was presented by Xerox. So NBC got their money from Xerox as a major sponsor.
Yeah.
So it was like we said today. Before we announced the winner of this year's The Biggest Loser champion, sponsored by Kohl's, back then it was before we broadcasted The Hobbit, sponsored by Xerox. That's what they used to say back in 1977. Yeah, that is what it was. And the logo for the company was everywhere.
Let's see. Xerox back in 77, Xerox was at their height. They were the technology company, and Xerox had in 77 invented the personal computer with a mouse and keyboard. Nobody had seen a mouse before. They invited this guy Steve and this guy Bill, and they, hey, check out our computer stuff. You want to write programs for it? And they're
Yes.
like, we don't want to write programs, but can we use that? Can we have that mouse? And Steve Jobs went to Xerox and stole the whole concept of the Macintosh and the personal computer with a mouse.
Indeed he did.
From Xerox. Xerox was high on their kite. Xerox was the technology company of the 70s. Nobody bigger. Xerox was the Apple of the 70s.
And they were indeed, but things certainly did change. They changed very fast, as they often do in the tech industry.
Yes.
Look, I've been deeply embedded in the Apple ecosystem for most of my adult life, and yet my very first tablet that I buy a Samsung tablet. Why? One reason and one reason alone. USB connectivity. I've got a tablet, a wonderful thing, and unlike another piece of Apple crap, or crapple as we call it, unlike the iPad, which does not allow you to, plug in any USB, I'm allowed to plug in a USB right here on my Samsung. So how about that? Take that, Apple crapple.
Question from the hotline,
Apple crap.
530.
I'm just joking. I love Apple. I just love to grouse.
Why did the 1980 Lord of the Rings animated film end at the Battle of Helm's Deep?
The Lord of the Rings movie that was produced in 1979, released by United Artists. Thank you, United Artists. It's like trying to say their name. They get the biggest, per word endorsement in this show.
Where does Saul Zaentz come into this?
Saul Zaentz?
Yeah, if United Artists...
That's a whole... You want to ask me one question and then derail to another question?
Yeah.
That's the way this conversation is going today.
Yeah,
I'm trying to focus about how The Hobbit has been adapted over the years.
Funny.
I'm not interested in talking about Saul Zaentz, bloody resume and on his... We'll do another show about Saul Zaentz on another day. Let's just talk about the adaptations of The Hobbit.
Making these adaptations?
The adaptation of The Lord of the Rings was not completed by Ralph Bakshi, to answer your question, because it was supposed to be two movies. And they never made a second movie. They only made the one.
Though it was hugely profitable.
And that was it.
It was one.
They only made the one.
It was one of the most profitable movies ever made.
It was profitable, profit margin to cost expenditure.
They put like $3 million into it, and it grossed $35 million at the box office.
That's a pretty good investment, yes. So, hi, sweetheart. How are you doing? Very, very good. Did you know that The Hobbit adaptation from 1977 was only an hour and a half long? 90-something minutes?
It was like your typical
and it
television special.
Managed to tell the entire story for everything of The Hobbit from end to end.
A good editor
from the
can
beginning
do that
of the
with
book
Peter
to the
Jackson's
end of the
films.
book. Now, but it was so successful and was so amazing that Rankin and Bass used their team of artists, including an amazing designer and painter named Minoru Nishida. Mr. Nishida, went on to work on their animated adaptation of The Last Unicorn, which looks and smells a lot like the world of The Hobbit, with those artists transferring their work right from one film, The Hobbit, to The Last Unicorn, and then ultimately working on another one that Rankin and Bass did, which was The Return of the King. They did an animated version of Return of the King. But The Hobbit animated version was my first exposure. And I saw the movie on television, was so enamored with it, and I picked up the book and read it right away. And it converted me to a lifelong pursuit of loving Professor Tolkien. But it was because of the success of that animated film. And it is most memorable because of a very grotesque Gollum, a creature that was very amphibious and frog-like, who was voiced by
The Hobbit.
That version of The Hobbit and the Rankin and Bass Return of the King had the same voice actors. You had Orson Bean doing Bilbo, and then you had Gollum, who was voiced by Brother Theodore, who was the underground alternative comic from the east side of New York, and he had nothing but strange offbeat comedy shows. He did one-man shows, underground taverns in Manhattan, and he was very little known. Only people in New York City who knew, the cabaret circuit and the indie club circuit knew who Theodore was. And he brought the weirdest and most interesting voice to that Gollum. Any of you young millennials out there who have never seen the animated version of The Hobbit, go back to that Rankin and Bass animated version and check it out. It's really good.
It was on NBC. A separate company was making the Lord of the Rings cartoon as an animated film, and then the third Return of the King animated film was back to Rankin and Bass.
Yep, that's right.
So Rankin and Bass did The Hobbit. They didn't do Lord of the Rings. They did do Return of the King.
United Artists had skewed things up quite a bit. At that point in time, they realized that they were going to screw Ralph Bakshi over. Poor Mr. Bakshi did not know that he was being duped into only making one film. They pulled one over on him, and by the time he was mostly done with Lord of the Rings film production, which was released in '78, I believe, Ralph Bakshi wasn't going to get the job to do Return of the King, and he never finished another Lord of the Rings film. By that time, Rankin and Bass had already gone into television production on Return of the King.
Now imagine...
Because United Artists knew that and Saul Zaentz, ciphering his work through them, they all knew that they were going to screw over poor Bakshi. which is a real mess.
Let's set the stage for 1977, the summer of 1977. As we just discussed, The Hobbit, the animated film, the first feature motion picture on NBC, came out in time for the holidays, right around Thanksgiving or Christmas, I believe. But let's set the stage. San Diego Comic-Con, 1977. The preeminent geek. Like,
yes.
it was still known even back in the 70s. San Diego Comic-Con was the place where you debuted your geek and fantasy project. So at Comic-Con 1977, this is how important Lord of the Rings and Tolkien has been to Comic-Con for decades. 1977, summer of 1977, January, you had one panel that was all about Rankin and Bass, and they were debuting their Hobbit film, and everybody was like, I need to go to that panel. And the line was 2 hours long to get into this small little cramped hotel room.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's right.
No more than 500 seats.
I remember this story.
The lines were 2 hours long to get in. But there was a separate line because not 3 hours later, there was another panel by Ralph Bakshi and his team of animators, and they were debuting the first footage from the Lord of the Rings cartoon.
How about that?
So in the summer of 77, Tolkien fans got a sneak preview of the cartoon version of The Hobbit and the cartoon version of Lord of the Rings, and they looked completely different. Completely different. And the fan reaction was very strenuous because they're like, the fans were confused, like, wait, they're both cartoons. I thought there's only one way to make cartoons. and Ralph Bakshi's version used motion capture. Basically used a lot of motion capture. They filmed actors and then they traced over them.
It was called rotoscoping.
Rotoscope.
It looks like our friend in the chat room was there. Sheepish Lion, you were there? The summer of 77? Oh my gosh, really? This is very interesting. I'm going to look.
Talk about that in the chat room. Cliff is monitoring the chat. So, in the summer of 77, fans got two different versions of Middle-earth. They got one that was very stylized as The Hobbit, these shrunken little characters and this toad-looking Gollum.
Very frog-like Gollum.
These tall, very human-like version of Lord of the Rings. They were shown back-to-back on the same day, and fans were confused. So, put that into perspective. Think about what it would be like to be at San Diego Comic-Con in the summer of 77 and seeing two different versions of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit made by two different cartoons, and they don't make sense. Now put that into perspective when you think about making a Hobbit trilogy nowadays. How important is it to make The Hobbit look and feel like Lord of the Rings?
Now it is it's very clear that the Hobbit films that we are getting now, we might as well race forward on the clock. Instead of dwelling on the Hobbit adaptation back in the 70s, bring it up and compare it to what's happening right now. Your Hobbit films that you guys are getting now don't really very much cover just the story that's in that book. You're getting a bigger, perhaps expanded, inflated version of The Hobbit that covers a whole bunch of history of Middle-earth stuff. And when you put them all together as 6 films, you're going to see that the Lord of the Rings movies, the way Peter Jackson made them, focus very successfully on just the Lord of the Rings narrative. The Hobbit narrative does not focus just on Bilbo's storyline. There's a lot of other story arcs. It's particularly clear when you watch the extra 25 minutes of the Desolation of Smaug extended edition, and you'll realize, oh shit, you'll realize that this Desolation of Smaug story has now become the Gandalf and Thrain showboat. And it's like all this other stuff that what Galadriel is interested in, what Saruman is interested in, all that stuff is so much more a part of what I'm suggesting to you is the canvas of the saga of Middle-earth.
You know, the chat room's so alive.
The saga of Middle-earth.
Ustreamer31431, thanks for watching from Bosnia. I don't think we've ever had a viewer from Bosnia. This is
hello, welcome.
The time, God, it's got to be like 4 in the morning in Bosnia.
Thank you for staying up so late in the morning.
Like if I do my time,
our audience members are in
calculations right.
England and all across Europe, and in Bosnia, you must be sleepy by now.
That's
hey,
fantastic.
Thank you. Well, you know, forgive me. You know, a little bit of language slips from me sometimes. I wasn't raised on the docks with the sailors, but I do cuss like one sometimes. The whole thing of
But basically,
the whole thing of adapting The Hobbit is, you know, and this has been proven historically, that you can adapt it into just, you know, a long radio piece that's 4 hours, full on, or you can put it into a 97-minute telefilm, and you have it succinct, complete.
Or
the whole Hobbit story is there in 97 minutes.
Or a 9-hour movie trilogy.
Now we've got Peter Jackson's adaptations, which are so much more expanded. It would be more appropriate to call these films the Saga of Middle-earth than it would to be to call them The Hobbit.
And that's what they're doing.
Because The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, is probably the one film out of the three that sticks probably most faithfully to the original books. Desolation of Smaug and Battle of the Five Armies are now abundantly clear that they're wide digressions from the original text, and that's okay. I guess it's all right. I mean, back when Rankin and Bass did their thing in '77,
yeah,
they removed Beorn, and his entire character and everything about him is removed. But, you know, you have to live with that because you've got an hour and a half, you've got the whole movie done in time. Now, what Peter and Fran and Philippa are giving us is a very different approach to adaptation. And this is, you know, the crux of my argument for many a year now. Lord of the Rings was a compression exercise, compressing to fit into the films. The Hobbit was an expansion exercise in writing, and it includes all this other beautiful stuff from the appendices. I like it, I'm enjoying it, but I know a lot of other hardcore fans, let's call them Tolkien purists.
Fundamentalists.
The purists are not
Tolkien
happy.
Fundamentalists.
Talk to some of our fans
Hello,
here.
Morocco.
Right here, our fans in the chat room can probably give you a pretty good, you know, barometric pressure reading of how sentiment lies with the fans. Okay? If you ask...
That sentiment is going to change in a month's time.
Ask the wetter man, and he'll tell you, oh, my satisfaction level with the Hobbit films is not 65%, which is what I had suggested at Kamikaze in our presentation. He's like, my satisfaction level with Hobbit films are 95, 98%. At the same time, there's another gentleman here, another friend in our chat room, and he'll say, yeah, my satisfaction with The Lord of the Rings was much more. I'm a fan who likes The Hobbit at about 60 or 65% success rate. I'm telling you, The Hobbit has polarized fans in the way that Peter Jackson has approached it, because originally we weren't expecting it to be all this other history of Middle-earth la 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 stuff all over the place. We were just expecting it to be just Bilbo's story. Why? Because a whole generation of us grew up on this version, when The Hobbit was only told in 97 minutes, and that's what we're used to.
You didn't get the complete story.
And, well, I kind of got the complete story. When I was a kid, I was fascinated to read about Beorn. But when I read the books, and I realized he's not in the film, you know, it didn't bother me. I didn't hate it. I still loved it.
What's the shortest version of The Hobbit? What's the Cliff's Notes version of The Hobbit? Is it the NBC telefilm?
The Cliff's Notes version? There is literally a Cliff's Notes for The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. They're combined into one single paperback of Cliff's Notes, but it does exist. It's true. I've seen it.
You know what I would love to see?
The real study guide. It's there.
Who did Mary Blair? You know Mary Blair, the artist behind It's a Small World. I would love to see a children's book that is The Hobbit done in Mary Blair style.
Oh, that could be fascinating.
I think that'd be super fun.
You know what?
Has there been an illustrated version of The Hobbit? I mean, we're talking about all these films, but let's also talk about the different versions of the Hobbit books. We need to talk about
the comic books, the comic book adaptations.
There's a comic book adaptation?
We're in a comic book store. We have to mention the comics, graphic novel adaptations of The Hobbit. We have to mention those as well.
And this is all United Artists. Tolkien would never do
I want to draw attention to streamer 7752.
The Mary Blair Witch.
You are very correct in saying, considering the reaction that Saruman and his presence got in the recent trailer for Battle of the Five Armies, the non-Hobbit stuff is quite popular. Yes, it's true. It's very, very true. My biggest interest in watching the final Hobbit film is not to follow Richard Armitage's story or Thorin's story. I'm a hell of a lot more interested in seeing what Saruman is going to do. That's my level of interest. Because there's a novelty in seeing brand new stuff from the appendix that's being filmed that has never been filmed. No existing adaptation covers this type of ground, like Peter Jackson's adaptations do. I think it's fascinating, but not everyone likes it.
The final Hobbit movie will change everybody's opinions of the entire Hobbit trilogy. The final movie will change everybody's opinions. And we saw this happen during The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien fundamentalists were
purists.
livid that the elves marched on Helm's Deep and Frodo and Sam were at Osgiliath. Like, they threw up their arms and stormed out of the theater and said, Peter Jackson has ruined this text. I love LA.
How about that? Yeah,
but it wasn't until Return of the King came out where Peter Jackson, his whole vision was completed, and fans came through and said, you know what? Based on what Peter Jackson did in the third movie, the second movie makes more sense, and I can appreciate that. The third movie is going to...
Now, the chat room is exploding with the conversation about Smaug, the Golden. Yes, a lot of fans are debating whether they like or dislike the presence of that gold dragon, where the dragon was literally covered in molten gold.
Why is he called? Is there in the cartoon versions? Is there any other? Does Smaug do anything crazy in the cartoon version?
Smaug doesn't do anything crazy. He acts like Smaug, and he has dialogue straight from the book. Now, let me go back to the question we've got from Eruana Undomiel. She asks, is Tauriel kind of considered a, quote, fan-made, unquote, character since she was not in the book? Yes, many, many fan bases literally have accused the writers of putting in a Mary Sue, and that Tauriel is a Mary Sue character from the get-go.
From what we hear was all Guillermo del Toro working with Philippa and Fran. But Guillermo del Toro really had a vision for Tauriel. That vision was corrupted
and changed
when he left the project, and Peter Jackson took over. But from what I hear, the original vision of Tauriel, as envisioned by original director Guillermo del Toro, made more sense.
She is asking, I have a question. Why did the films bring female characters who were not in the book? Did the production want to share female power? Ah, interesting. Well, the producers of the film are led by a team of women. There are women who are the lead.
They wrote the film.
The lead writers and the lead producers are not guys; they're girls. So Philippa and Fran Walsh are the two directly responsible. I think more than you've suggested that Guillermo del Toro was responsible for injecting the Tauriel character.
Oh, come on! Give the guy a lot of credit.
When I talk to fans, they all say the same thing. They really, really like the Tauriel character. They love her. But most of them dislike what the character is given in the script.
Yeah.
They dislike the execution of the character and the stuff that she's given to do in the script.
So
it's fascinating.
We've heard some stats from our friends at Weta that over 60% of the Weta employees are female. So put that into perspective of who's actually making this film.
Who is making the film that we have now?
Yeah.
Well, the film is being made by a combination of New Line Cinema as a production entity that has been absorbed into Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is going to pony up all the money for the production.
And 3-Foot-7 is the production company.
3-Foot-7 is the production company in New Zealand, which gets the injection of the financing from the studios. The studio named MGM has the distribution rights only in North America, not distribution rights worldwide. All of the territories for distribution are handled by Warner Brothers. American money goes to MGM's pocketbooks. Yes. So it's a very bizarre split of how The Hobbit got made. It's kind of a miracle that The Hobbit movies got made at all.
Oh, that's a whole story.
It's a whole other story. But look at this. Someone asks now, would the Lego version of The Hobbit be considered as an adaptation? Or an adaptation to an adaptation?
Of an adaptation.
Yeah, it's like an Inception mirror, almost.
The Lego Hobbit video game
is an adaptation of the film, not the book.
which is an adaptation.
Yep.
The film is an adaptation.
So
of the
they
book.
have sub-levels of licensing rights that Lego cannot include anything in their stuff, in their animated video game or other animations. Lego cannot include anything unless it is specifically movie-centric creations.
Now, one of the
very specifically that. How about that?
And bringing up the Lego thing, this is why earlier in our discussion I was so focused on the rights and where does Saul's Ant come in and where does United Artists come in. Like, when these rights get passed and transferred to and from United Artists and then MGM, and then that's when you start to get into these complications of like, all right, did Tolkien's estate, did Christopher Tolkien give permission for the Lego Hobbit video game? Did Christopher Tolkien give permission?
Christopher Tolkien did not give permission to the no.
What about the comic book?
No.
What about the NBC version?
Comic book people who did their adaptations, Lego video game producers who are doing their adaptation from the film, all these people are all getting permission to do it from existing licensing holders. In this case, it is Tolkien Enterprises, a company created by Saul Zaentz, but Mr. Zaentz continued to have an ongoing professional relationship with United Artists for decades and decades and decades.
Okay. So
that's why his movies Amadeus and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest are released by United Artists and produced by him.
So Saul Zaentz came in. United Artists was broke. They put it into production in '74. The Hobbit into production '74. United Artists ran out of money. They may have had a couple films that didn't hit. So United Artists, they needed cash injection. They went to Saul Zaentz. Saul Zaentz was flush with cash. He's like, all right, you guys keep the United Artists name. I'm giving you a bunch of money, and I'm getting a piece of your action. So Saul Zaentz becomes this, basically becomes part of United Artists.
Yes.
So for all intents and that's why we don't see the Saul Zaentz logo.
Yes.
On the trailers. When you watch the trailers, you see Warner Brothers, MGM, and New Line Cinema, but you don't see the Saul Zaentz logo.
Okay.
But why don't you see the United Artists logo? That's an interesting tale on its own. In the 1980s, during all this high finance and stuff like that, United Artists made a partnership with MGM. Everyone leveraged each other out of the boonies. So, actually, United Artists, the company that made the deal with Tolkien himself, is actually a subsidiary of MGM, the Lion.
Yes, the Lion. Yes, you got it.
And just like...
Bye, Arowana. Thank you for joining our chat.
Just like New Line Cinema was a subsidiary of Warner Brothers.
Yes.
Though New Line Cinema was all over Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes.
But they were still subsidiary of Warner Brothers. And the funny thing...
the Tolkien Enterprises licensed the film rights to Miramax in 1997. That's why Weinstein had his bloody name on the credits when he actually had nothing to do with it except a name on a contract in one special deal.
Harvey Weinstein is still getting gets like
still
2%
getting those checks. Yes, Miramax.
Of The Hobbit.
Miramax assigned the film rights in 1998 to New Line. Now, here's the real kick in the pants.
Miramax is the studio that wanted to do 2 movies. He wouldn't agree to 3.
The heirs of Tolkien, Tolkien's estate, including Christopher Tolkien, and happy birthday to you, Christopher Tolkien. He just turned 90 years old
90,
just a few days ago.
90.
Happy birthday to Christopher Tolkien, who is the only person who has brought us through valiant efforts all the existing manuscripts and unpublished stuff from the worlds of Middle-earth, things we would never have known about, especially Unfinished Tales and the Silmarillion.
Life's work as an editor.
I can't tell you that life as a Tolkien fan is not complete with just Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. You have to read the Silmarillion, you have to read the Unfinished Tales, and more. You have to absorb this stuff, especially the Children of Húrin. You've got to get this stuff, guys. It's great.
His father's legacy is his only job, right? He doesn't teach at Oxford or anything.
He has been the executor of his legal estate all of his life, and he's had no other life. He has lived carrying, like Atlas, carrying that world of Arda on his shoulders. Christopher Tolkien has been the Atlas of Middle-earth, of Arda, carrying the world on his shoulders.
Do you think Christopher Tolkien, as the son, has felt more pressure, lifelong pressure, about Middle-earth than the
Easily.
professor himself?
Easily, yeah. Christopher Tolkien has felt more grief, more stress, more anxiety, and more feeling like he's a caretaker of these stories than anyone. Absolutely.
Do you think?
And it's an amazing thing. It's when you stop to think about it. It's impressive.
Do you think J.K. Rowling in her Harry Potter universe? Do you think J.K. Rowling feels more like Christopher Tolkien, or do you think she feels more like the professor himself, J.R.R. Tolkien, the creator, the author, letting it go into the world, letting it find its way under the tutelage of some smart people?
It's very great. It's really great to look at the chat room. Fosuina has said that Christopher Tolkien taught at Oxford for a few years and then gave it up to sort out the Silmarillion.
Yes.
How about that? That's excellent.
Yes.
That's very cool. Thank you for adding that in.
There's something really interesting I find fascinating about the creator, author versus editor.
Yes.
That's basically what Christopher Tolkien had. His life's work is just as an editor, and his father's work was as a creator. And his father was a hardworking family man who was just like take 3 different jobs to pay the bills. He had 4 kids, sick wife.
Isn't that amazing?
Like, and he, you know, everyone's like, dude, I know you're hit up for money. Like, why don't you just publish those stories? He's like, I'm not done with them yet. I'm not done with you. I'm not done with you.
According to our fans in the chat room, 70% of the Silmarillion was rewritten and restructured by Christopher. And it had to be so, in a certain sense, because while Tolkien was still alive, he fretted over it, he sweat and cried and rewrote over it, and he crumpled up papers and rewrote. And Tolkien, while he was alive, was never happy, never finished the Silmarillion. So Christopher had a lot of revising and rewriting to do. Now the Hobbit adaptation that succeeds the most. This is one of the lingering questions that we're going to leave you with, guys, as we begin to close down the last few minutes of our show tonight. And it is such a blessing to have all of you here with us here on Torn Tuesday. I'm so glad to be live with you. Justin and I are we've been an integral part of TheOneRing.net for so long. We have so much coming up in the next couple of weeks. The premiere of the Battle of the Five Armies will be happening very quickly. And on the heels of that, we've got fans who are going to debate the merits of these films for a long time to come, as they're debating right here in the chat room live. Before we get down to those brass tacks, and I leave you guys with the ultimate question, what adaptation of The Hobbit has been the most successful in your eyes? And I want to see some interesting talk on this. We should have a poll. We should actually have an online poll on our Facebook page.
That'd be great.
Our dear fellow, the great-grandson of J.R.R. Tolkien, that would be Royd Tolkien, he wrote me an email just this afternoon, a few hours ago, right before doing our live show. And he wanted to put something out there and let everyone know that his brother, who is dying of motor neuron disease...
Ooh, that's...
His brother, Mike Tolkien is an extraordinary fellow. He's been here with us. I've traveled New Zealand with him. He's in the New Zealand air safety video that I did with the fine folks at Air New Zealand. But in order to raise money and raise awareness for motor neuron disease, Royd Tolkien has been given the blessing by Warner Brothers to show the Battle of the Five Armies days early before anybody else gets to see it. And they're going to do this thing to raise money for local support and treatment centers that have helped Mike Tolkien, Royd's brother, and to raise awareness of motor neuron disease. It's a one-night-only event, and according to the press release, it's happening on Sunday, December 7th in Wales. So if any of you guys are over there in Wales, Emily, I'm looking at you, Stargate geek, Emily.
Oh,
you're there now. I know you're right there.
The Tolkien family will be
The Tolkien family will be present, and it's going to be at the, I can't pronounce it because it's Welsh, the Clwyd Theatre Cymru has been chosen for a special preview screening.
I hated driving in Wales.
On Sunday the 7th, and the Battle of the Five Armies is going to be there. It's going to get its major UK release on December 12th. Major American release here in North America, December 17th, with early screenings on the 15th and 16th. But everybody in England gets it earlier than the world. They get The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies on December 12th. If you're in Wales, and I can't pronounce it, but we're going to post the story.
Clyde Theatre Camuru.
Clyde Theatre Caimru. I can't pronounce this freaking Welsh. Here it is. Royd and other members of his immediate family and some special guests and representatives of the Neuro Center in Saltney, Nightingale House Hospice in Wrexham, and the Motor Neurone Disease Association. They're all going to be there.
See?
You guys go. Check out the story. We'll put it up on TheOneRing.net very soon. That's right.
How do you do it?
Idril7 has typed it correctly. That's it. Clyde and Kimru. There it is. So that's the theater, okay?
I'm typing the URL right now.
Yeah, there's the URL. It's www.clwyd-theater-cymru.co.uk. Very good. Thank you for typing that in, Justin. So you guys can, if you're there, you're all you England folks, I know you're with us regularly, staying up till 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and bless you for being part of our live webcast. But check it out.
Warner Brothers heard fans loud and clear. The London premiere, which happens Monday, December 1st, this coming Monday. The London premiere at 7:30 p.m. local time in London. Warner Brothers is doing a same time simulcast. They're showing the movie at the same exact time, 8:30 a.m. in Wellington. The cast and crew, including Richard Taylor, all the dwarf actors, all the Kiwi dwarves, will and all the effects guys.
They get to watch it together.
We'll be at in Wellington watching the movie
at the Embassy Theater.
At the Roxy Theater.
Oh, at the Roxy Theater. Okay.
We'll be watching it at the same exact time that the stars in London, and I believe they're having a live webcast between the two theaters, so everybody can be part of it. Richard Taylor's supposed to say some words from New Zealand.
URLs don't work in the chat, Justin, but
oh well.
Hey, we'll have to tweet it and Facebook it. Don't worry.
Yes. So the premiere is this Monday. London. If you're in London on Sunday night, TheOneRing.net is hosting a wonderful pub moot, a fan meetup on Sunday night in London, I think near Leicester Square.
Yes.
And then the premiere is Monday, the fan studded, and then the following week, there's premieres in Toronto with Lee Pace. There's premieres in Rio de Janeiro. There's premieres in Mexico City.
Really?
All
a premiere in
week.
Rio and in Mexico City?
And different actors. And there's Paris is doing a premiere. Toronto, Mexico
really?
City. There's premieres all around the world. The actors are going from London and they're spreading out all over the world. There's going to be a different actor in every city. And then they all come together here in LA Monday, December 8th. All the actors will be present on Hollywood Boulevard Monday, December 8th as Peter Jackson gets his star on the Walk of Fame. You better believe we'll be there at 11 a.m. Pacific time, Monday, December 8th. And then the Hollywood premiere is Tuesday, December 9th from the Grauman's Chinese Theater, or the TCL.
Emily is asking Sunday? This Sunday?
This Sunday. This Sunday.
No, actually, this Sunday is
5 days.
This
from
Sunday
now.
is November 30th.
That's
what we're talking about
moot.
is Sunday the 7th. The pub moot is Sunday, December 7th.
No, the pub moot is the 30th, November 30th. Pub moot is this Sunday in London.
Oh, how about that?
And the premiere is Monday, this coming Monday. So the pub moot.
My goodness.
Go to TheOneRing.net. You can. There's a bunch of posts. You can go to our Facebook page. We've got events and calendars that you can. Just look at our events and look at our Facebook wall at facebook.com/TheOneRingNet, all one word. This has been a fascinating discussion. You're giving this talk in public pretty soon in Santa Clarita?
Believe it or not, on the 8th, on Monday, December 8th. Isn't that the night? Oh, when are we having our West Coast premiere?
Tuesday, December 9th.
Yeah, well, so on Monday, the 8th, I will be at Santa Clarita Public Library giving a very polished and very carefully rendered screen, slideshow and lecture presentation about The Hobbit then and now, looking at the old adaptations of The Hobbit, the radio, the television, the animation, and the films up to now. So, and how about this? The OneRing.net thing in London Emily was asking if we will be in London this Sunday, and the answer is no. I'm so sorry.
No, we have
I wish we
other
were.
staffers over there. Green Dragons over there. We have a few other staffers going to be in London, and we've been told. No, we haven't been told officially, but you never know who might show up to a One Ring party.
The Pub Moot on the November 30th. We've extended the invitation to Ian
all
McKellen.
The actors
to
are there.
The London actors who are there, including Andy Serkis.
Adam Brown.
Adam Brown, who is currently on stage. Our boy Adam Brown, who plays Ori, he's on stage doing Saxon Court at the Southwark Playhouse. And he just got a rave review. How about that?
That's wonderful. So, thank you for looking back at all the different versions of The Hobbit through the years. It's a fascinating journey.
We have to put a poll on our Facebook timeline so people can decide which adaptation of The Hobbit they love the best.
Yes.
We'll see what they have to say. Okay.
Thank you all for helping out with the chat. I learned a lot watching the chat. I learned a lot listening to Cliff.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. It's been...
You guys... we're not going to be on our live show before the Pub Moot, are we?
No, Pub Moot's Monday.
The Pub Moot is Sunday, so hopefully you guys get there. If you want to get more details, look on the main site of TheOneRing.net. Go to the main page of TheOneRing.net. Follow us on Twitter at TheOneRing.net, and follow me, QuickBeam2000, and you can even take a look at this guy, Justin's Big Idea. Lovely to have you guys, and be sure to stay safe and be good to yourselves during next week. So much excitement. We're going to do one more live Torn Tuesday before we do when we will be live
at the premiere.
Well, we'll also be live, hopefully streaming live, when Peter Jackson gets his star on the Walk of Fame.
Yes.
We're not allowed to stream live from there.
We'll see what we can do.
We don't know yet if Keely and Feely, who are our friends.
They'll be here for the premiere.
Kelly and Alex. We're not talking about the dwarf actors who play Keely and Feely, but we're talking about Happy Hobbit, the lovely ladies from the Happy Hobbit podcast. That would be Kelly and Alex. Wondering if we're going to send them down to do press coverage of
at the premiere
of Peter getting his star on the Walk of Fame.
I don't think they'll be here, but we'll see.
Well, then I'll do that. I'll do the press coverage on that day. That should be a very exciting day.
So,
okay.
Happy Grand to all of you.
Happy Grand. Happy Thanksgiving.
Check us out on Friday here at Meltdown Comics. We're doing a Black Friday live stream extravaganza.
Come and join us in person.
All of the torn shirts will be available for one day only. I'm not going to keep them up for more than the day.
Thank you, Max.
So
shout out to you,
this will be your only time to order our classic Shirebucks coffee. Gandalf, Obey,
show us this two other
Star
t-shirts.
Wars.
The Star Wars shirt, which you've seen us wear many times, it says "May the dwarves be with you," and instead of a lightsaber, there's a sting.
Obey Sauron.
Obey. This is the spoof of the Shepherd Fairy.
Probably the most important shirt you could have going into the Battle of Five Armies is Lake Town Fire Department.
Lake Town Fire Department.
People actually understand this shirt now.
It's great.
Now that they've seen,
they're gonna know all about Lake Town's Fire Department.
So check us out Friday. We're gonna be live 24 hours, midnight to midnight Pacific. So we'll be on in the wee hours for Europe to check us out. We will ship worldwide.
They will ship worldwide.
Yes.
Emily, in response to you on the chat room, Cliff, she says, please post all the info on the Pub Moot on the One Ring. It's already there. The answer is, we have been posting about this for a long time. We've been posting about it weeks and weeks ago, and it's still there on the main page.
If you miss it on the OneRing.net,
we repeated it.
Go to our Facebook page.
And we'll repeat it there.
And just scroll down our wall. But thank you, everybody, for sticking with us on Ustream and refreshing the page.
Happy Hobbit holidays to you guys. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
A turkey day.
It's a wonderful day.
Do hobbits eat turkey?
Yes, they do.
So
hobbits love
everyone can feel
big
like
meals.
Everyone can feel like a hobbit this Thursday in America, and then Friday, Black Friday worldwide. This has been Torn Tuesday. We're live every Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific from Meltdown Comics, the home of Nerdist, right here in the middle of Hollywood.
And you want one more Grand? I'll give you one more Grand. Are you ready?
Do it. I'll hit the button.
1, 2, 3. Grand.